So without further ado, Miss Avital, AKA the Parenting Junkie. As I mentioned, she is someone who I really admire as a wise teacher, and even more so than that, the human being that she is. I have now had the honor of spending some good time with Avital, hanging out at coffee shops when we were filming in New York City. Avital was sitting with Akira and I in a meeting, and my son, if I'm not mistaken, he knocked over an entire glass of water, correct?
Yeah.
The water spilled everywhere. So my husband and I kind of did a little frantic, oh my gosh, we have to go clean it up. And, Akira's running off to the barista trying to get a cloth. And Avital's just calmly kind of looking at us saying, guys, it's water. What did you do? You created a whole PlayStation out of the water that he spilled.
Yeah. I mean,
did you not?
I left such an impact on you guys, but it was really just, he's a toddler. He loves playing with water. Let's make it available to him. So we just poured it over into a tray, and I think that's what we did.
It was amazing. Literally, I'm not even kidding you guys. Within 1 minute, she took something that my husband and I thought was a disaster and changed it into an entire magical experience. So I was like, that's it. That is the reason why we have connected with people like her, because she's had a marked impact, directly on me and Akira's life. So a little bit more formal about her. She has a global community of parents through her courses, coaching, and popular blog, The Parenting Junkie. She is a mindful parenting coach and a childhood designer trained in the disciplines of simplicity parenting and hand-in-hand parenting. And probably a lot of you on the call have heard about those forms of parenting, which are very conscious, empowered, and I think are gaining more and more popularity, right? She is a homeschooling mother of 4. This always completely blows my mind because I have 1 and I cannot imagine having 4. And really, Avital, it is your core mission to really empower parents who feel like they are struggling and help to lift them out of that place of massive overwhelm and struggle so that they can become the parent that they really know that they are. And, furthermore, they can become the human that they really know that they are capable of being. I know that we can all use her guidance right now because she has been homeschooling her children, far before our current situation that we're in. So Avital, I want to start off with asking you, because the topic of today is doing it all, overcoming the overwhelm at home and doing it all. And that's such what does doing it all mean? That's such a broad category. I want to know exactly what it means to you.
Thank you so much for that intro, Renee. So, I think often, just because I run a company and because I homeschool, people ask me, how do you do it all? It's a question that I get asked kind of often. And that's how it came to the forefront of my awareness that we have this concept in our culture that we should and can do it all. And I think, I heard this great piece of wisdom when I was a teenager, that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And I have kind of framed or redefined doing it all in my own life to say, how can I create, craft, design a life that is meaningful to me in what is important to me? Right? So I think doing it all is not winning all the awards and being, beautiful and fit and eating healthy and sleeping well and contributing and saving millions of dollars and having loads of kids. And there's no fixed parameter. It might be those things. It might be something completely different. And we have to exercise creativity and flexibility. And especially in this time, adapting and adjusting our expectations to reality. So there's the conscious manifestation and the spiritual level of, quantum creation where there are no boundaries, right? And then we're also physical beings living a human experience on the 3D reality of Earth. And bridging that gap is doing it all, right? It's saying, well, I have a huge vision. I have huge...
Can you say that? Do you mind? Can you say that again? Because I truly had a moment there. And I love this because I've talked to you so many different times already, but I've never actually heard you share that specific thing. Can you do the bridge the gap again so that we can really get that?
Yeah. So I was just saying, on our spiritual level, in the quantum field, in the manifestation world of spirituality, we have a huge vision for who we are, and there is all the possibilities, right? The open plane of possibilities is available. And alongside that, we're living a human experience with realities, with specific numbers in the bank account, with specific hours in the day. And bridging that gap is where we do it all, where we define what our all is, right? Where we understand what it truly means to us to do it all within the confines of our reality and our 3D experience.
You know, I would love to get feedback from people from my own sheer curiosity, because I realize I've never done this practice before. I've never asked I was so keen to ask you what doing it all, is for you, but it's dawning on me, I have not actually had this conversation with myself about what that would mean to me. I would love to hear from the audience out there on Facebook and also here on Zoom. Have you ever done this practice before of asking yourself what doing it all or what having it all would look like for you? I'm going to be curious to hear. No, not really. See, I know. Why haven't we done this before? No, but I love it. Great. Some people are far ahead of the curve and they have said yes. And I bow to you because I have not done that before. Okay. So that's amazing, Avital. Now for you personally, what does that look like? I'm just curious for you personally, what is doing your all?
Okay. So, I think we all have realms in our lives: our intellectual development, physical development, spiritual, financial, family ties and relationships, right? We have our realms of what makes us a human being. And I think that we can prioritize and thrive and take some of them to the extreme, and others of them are going to be on a hum. They're going to be good enough. And so for me, my health and wellness is a good enough type of category, right? Like, I'm not spending hours and hours in the gym. If I get yoga done 3 times a week, that's doing it all from my perspective. I don't hold the goal to do much more in that area, right? But then, for example, there might be other areas where I want to more so take on more of the pie. Like for me, homeschooling my children and taking on the yoke, as it were, of their education is something that I do want to do. That is part of my bigger vision and my, zone of genius that I want to expand on, right? Or we all have a certain number in our head of where our bank account needs to be for us to feel secure and abundant, etc., right? But it doesn't have to be billions of dollars, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be millions of dollars, right? So we all have to figure out what the realm is, where the happy medium is. And as I said before, I just want to make this particularly timely to right now. We have to adjust those according to the 3D reality. And that is going to be the crucial key for this moment. So I'll just answer, for me personally, doing it all means waking up with a smile, being healthy in my body, having some moments throughout the day of presence with my children, running a conscious company, contributing to the world through content and, courses, and, various other things in my relationship, certain things that I want in terms of quality time with my partner, certain types of friendships that I want to maintain, and relationships with my family, etc. Right? So there's this overall picture where I know what it means to me to have had a day that I'm proud of, and to have had a day that when I put my head on the pillow at night, I feel, sure, there were tantrums, there were mistakes made, but the overall picture of my day is one that I stand behind, that I can look myself in the mirror and feel a sense of integrity, because the external experience of my day, the external situations and choices and behaviors, thoughts, words that I displayed and engaged in match my internal vision and identity for who I am. If there was some cohesiveness between those two, if I didn't feel like a fraud or a fake or like I was self-sabotaging, etc., then that's my definition of doing it all.
That is super inspiring. If you guys see me kind of like looking down and not at the screen, it's because I literally am taking notes. I'm taking notes over here because this is so, what you're sharing is, it's simple and it's grounding and it's foundational, because I see a lot. I want to acknowledge I'm actually trying to keep up with the chat over here as well. And a couple of people made comments about, and I totally relate to this, which is why I'm going to name it and share it out loud, is that we can get overwhelmed with the capacity of who we are and who we want to be. It's this growth idea, especially all of us. I'm assuming if you are on this call and here through Mindvalley, you are a very growth oriented individual. You are propelled and you're motivated by that. So to some degree, we see and feel this future vision of who we think we are, and then we can get overwhelmed. And so those were some of the comments popping up. Yes, I'm overwhelmed for sure. Me too. I'm overwhelmed too, because I know I've got da-da-da-da-da to do. But I love what you shared, which kind of cuts the fat off, I guess, if you will. I'm sure there's a better phrase. I'm sorry. But making a list of the non-negotiable and the good enough, like you just mentioned, because you know that there's only so much bandwidth in the 3D world, you're probably not going to have a 10 in every single category that you're looking at 100% of the time. But for you to be able to go to sleep knowing that you're having a day that you're proud of, if there are certain things that are in that category of good enough, then that's perfect. So maybe we can all just ingest that wisdom right now and get a little bit less hard on ourselves, because we have Avital, right here, who I look at her in my life as, oh my goodness, she has all the things like activated. She is like a 10 out of 10 in all levels. I'm just saying that that's what I probably project, onto you. So I think to some degree, we forget that probably the people that we're looking up to, they're just okay with knowing that there's some areas in their life that they're not going to be mastering possibly right now. But in order to be a master, the masters know that, I think, and they're okay with it.
Yeah. My brother is a CEO, and he once told me that when he interviews people, he asks them what they're focusing on. And if they list more than one or two things, he doesn't believe them. And he's like, that's not possible in turn. And now, I don't want to limit what's possible in our minds, but I also really want to ground us in realism. People project onto me that I'm doing Pinterest-worthy crafts with my kids, or that we're eating this holistic organic diet. We're not. My kids are eating pasta 6 nights a week or whatever, right? We're eating cereals for breakfast. That's not what I'm out there. I'm not there teaching optimized health and wellness and diet. I think it's amazing. I would love to be there. That's beautiful. That's not my top goal and priority right now. So I'm okay with good enough in that realm. And sometimes just being aware that, this isn't what I'm focused on right now. This isn't my place that I'm going to shine. Maybe it's just not my zone of genius. It's not what calls me, right? Good enough is good enough there. But I think it's more of an internal experience of doing it all is, do I have what I need? Do I have what I want? And when I go to bed at night, do I feel good about how I showed up for the imperfect realities, right? For the tantrums, for the bad news, right? Do I feel some cohesiveness there? Because I think for me, that's really, that integrity is the sense of doing it all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Avital has so much to speak into today. So I will just kind of state in advance that we're going to be covering a lot of different topics. But, to the point and kind of just wrapping that up, I wonder specifically, because you do talk to so many different parents, and I know right now you're offering, also through Parenting Junkie, your own communications, and free services. I know you have a play pandemic that's going on right now. We can talk a little bit about that later. But what have you noticed that has shifted the most emotionally and also physically for parents right now in having children at home? And by the way, for just so all of you know, we are going to be answering the questions specifically about homeschooling, about setting up the schedules throughout the day. It's all on my list right here. But as I just mentioned, we really want to cover the full holistic package, you know, as much as we can. So Avital, and maybe actually what I just shared about the homeschooling, maybe that's a part of what your answer is.
Yeah. So, you know, I just want to hold space for the fact that there is a very wide range of experiences right now. On the one hand, we're all in this together and we're all experiencing the same, which is kind of magical in a way. But on the other hand, it's very different if you have been able to keep your job. It's very different if you have access to the outdoors. It's very different if you or a loved one has been sick, or if you've lost someone you love. So I just want to say that what I'm saying may sound generalized. It's not. I realize that every single person's situation is different within this reality, right? The amount of help and support and resources and the types of kids you have and the type of work you have is going to influence this tremendously. Yeah. But what I'm hearing kind of across the board from everyone is, first of all, you know, this kind of, if we wanted to categorize it in negative and positive, we could, or we could just stay in that neutral realm of what we're noticing, right? So I think, first of all, there's a lot of fear and anxiety coming up just around life in general, the uncertainty of it all, right? Life was always uncertain. We could have been hit by a car at any given moment, fallen dead from a heart attack. But that uncertainty has come to the forefront of our awareness. And for many of us, that triggers us into a state of helplessness, powerlessness, and, you know, depression. So that's a theme that's coming up for parents, this fear around what will be, right? I think a lot of parents are noticing what it takes to be with children all day. We're used to having a sense of a village, a sense of a support system, a sense of some kind of breakup in our day, right? And influence with others. And I think we are becoming aware, for better or worse, of our inner strengths and of our inner weaknesses as it, you know, as pertains to spending consecutive time with our children. And especially for those parents who weren't staying home beforehand, I think there's suddenly a lot of appreciation and valuing of what it takes to be in constant relationship with children and what it takes to run a home. Just the amount of physical labor that goes into that, the amount of emotional labor that goes into that. And the same is true for education, right? We're suddenly understanding that managing a child, that teaching actively is no small feat and is actually a complicated and highly complex, highly intelligent, right, art form, right, science form, right? We're suddenly putting so much value on what it takes to teach, etc. Right? So I think there's a lot of things that have suddenly been shifted, and I think alongside all of that, we have to just mention the sense of confinement, you know, especially if you're in an apartment, if you don't have access to the outdoors, right? Any of that feeling of cabin fever, of being tight, right? Of being claustrophobic, it can feel like a relief if you feel like you are able to simplify and slow down, and there's nowhere to rush, and there's no morning pressure, and that can be a relief, or it can feel like a suffocation of sorts. So these are the themes that are coming up, not to mention, of course, you know, the fear of financial loss, the fear of health loss, all of those things that are coming up. But these are the global experiences I think that we're all tapping into.
Thank you so much, Avital. I want to just presence for, there have been several more people who have jumped on the call right now. So we are right now in the training portion of this call with Avital, AKA the Parenting Junkie. We have about an hour and 7 minutes left on the call. We are going to be doing live Q&A with her after the teaching segment. So please drop any very specifically formulated questions into the Q&A box so that we can get to those. Avital, I am super curious, because we've mentioned several times that you are a homeschooling, at-home working mother of 4. How do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do what we need to do for our businesses, take a shower? I know that's not going to happen all the time. Okay, maybe that's a little ambitious, but you know, how do we do the cooking? How do we do the shower? How do we get our kids clean? How do we get them in the homework? How do we do all these things?
Yeah,
every day?
Okay, so let's divide that question into two portions. One is, how do we establish a daily flow, right? A daily rhythm that embeds within it all of the big things we've got to hit on. Look, our kids need to move their bodies. They need to learn something during the day. They need to have sufficient hours to play. They need to get messy and use their hands and develop their fine motor skills. We need to have family time and connect. There are things that we need to do, and I'll happily walk you through the 7 elements that I recommend everybody fit into their flow. And I don't call it a schedule because I don't think it needs to be tied to the clock, but I want to just put a pin in that and say, let's come to that in a minute. And let's first talk about the educational portion. Does that work for you, Renee?
Yeah, and also, Avital, if you could throw in there as well, because someone brought up an excellent point, and thank you so much. I don't know if it's still here in the chat box. It's scrolling really fast. Oh geez, where did it go? Okay, thank you, Marissa, for adding in homeschooling and distance learning are different. So if we can cover that point at some time, whether it's in this section or not, I think that's a really great thing to cover.
100%, and that's where I was going to start. So thank you, Marissa. As someone who's been homeschooling for a bunch of years, first of all, there is no such thing as homeschooling. It's like saying schooling. There's all the different types that you could possibly imagine. There are people bringing school home and doing it at the kitchen table. There are people who are unschooling and don't do any kind of formal education, and everything in between. But homeschooling usually involves long hours outside of the home every day and socializing with other children and with other parents. It involves going to classes. It involves relying on a village and a network and a community and co-ops, etc. And so a lot of people are writing to me saying, I guess this is no change for you. And whilst I do feel well set up and I'm very blessed in that way, it is a huge change for me. We're used to a lot of outside involvement. So I know a lot of people are saying, well, I'm trying homeschooling out. Like, first of all, don't judge homeschooling based on quarantine. It's not the same thing. But second of all, don't forget that this is a time of global trauma and global suffering and global massive anxiety. And so if you're struggling with working from home that you're not used to, with managing new financial stress, and without any of your regular help, like grandparents visiting or household help or whatever you usually have, don't compare apples to oranges. That is not, typical homeschooling, and that is going to be challenging every day of the week, not to mention all of our emotional stress during this time. Now, having said that, I think there are a lot of different philosophies and pedagogies that you could go after, right? And maybe your school has set up a school, a virtual school, and your kids are logging in for 7 hours a day, and that's working for you. Or maybe you've decided you're just unschooling during this time, and there's nothing that you're going to abide by in terms of education. And that is fine. There is zero judgment on any of this. There is no one right way to educate children. And it will have to match your resources and your values every day of the week, right? It has to. And so I want to just remind everyone before we talk about homeschooling that our level of expectation of ourselves, of others, always has to match our level of resources and support.
And the expectation on our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if children are suddenly missing their friends and suddenly not able to interact with others, and their parents are suddenly yelling a lot more and frustrated a lot more, and their whole routine has gone to shot and everything has just changed for them, you can imagine how that's going to impact their curiosity and their ability to focus and learn. And we have to hold space for that and make our adjustments to our expectations accordingly. And with all of that said, I want to say that I think it's kind of an exciting time. It's kind of an exciting opportunity. And I know not all of us can take this opportunity. If you're working 8 hours or 10 hours for your job on your computer, you're just not available. We're just going to have to let that go, right? But if you are able to engage in a little bit of learning with your kids, I think it's kind of a magical opportunity to realize that this is something that typically on a global level, we outsource to someone else. We kind of say, well, I'll set up the home and I'll provide financially for my kid and I'll love them, but someone else will educate them. And it is my firm belief that we are the curriculum. I've said this before. I say this on Little Humans, I think. The idea that we are...
I wrote it down. That's one of my favorite things that you share. I would love for you to deeply go into that, because Avital, this is so important that the parent is the curriculum. And then also if we can follow that up with some specific kind of time flow suggestions for daily schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also want to outline for you guys how we homeschool, just what we do, because I think that could be really helpful for you. We've put together a crash course about it. I can share that in the link too, but I also just want to give you the headlines here because it's a system that I have found to be very liberating, and I'm hoping that you'll find that as well, maybe. But yeah, so we are the curriculum. And the idea here that I want you to remember is we've been conditioned to think that whatever is taught in school, the math, the literacy, history, geography, whatever, is the thing that children need to get, right? And we have to instill that in them. They're an empty vessel. We've got to fill them up with this facts and information. Then they've got to be able to repeat that on a test. And then we've succeeded. They get into college, etc. This is an opportunity for us to rethink that paradigm and to realize and really think deeply about what it means to be well educated, and to think deeply about what it is you've taken from your education growing up. Because I venture to guess that you remember very few of the facts that you were taught in school, and that very few of those facts have served you in becoming the adult that you are today and in seeing all the success that you've seen. Facts, memorizing rote facts that are irrelevant to our lives, that don't hold meaning, is not what it means to be educated. And when we just put that to one side, we can realize that what it means to be well educated is to embody the skills and the mindset of a lifelong learner, of someone who is always operating from a place of beginner's mind, of curiosity, of capacity to learn and grow and change and have that flexibility and that growth mindset that you all have. And so, you know, yeah, we can do the school curriculum that they send. Honestly, I think it's irrelevant. I think it's a complete waste of time. I mean, you could not, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is for you to realize that what your kids are learning most during this time is watching mom and dad or whoever's with them and saying, well, how do you live your life? How do you show up to a global pandemic? How do you get up in the morning? What's your mindset at? How are you adapting and flexible, etc., right? And are you curious? I hear parents often say to their kids, you know, well, I don't remember 3rd grade math, or I can't do 5th grade history, right? It's beyond me. And the message is that learning is for you. And when you're done, when you're 18, you're done learning, right? And I think that this is the opportunity to realize that you can't do education to someone else. Education isn't something you do to someone. Motivation isn't something you do to someone. You don't make them motivated. Focus is not something you do to someone. Instead, we can come alongside our children and reignite our identities as curious families, as families who value education, learning, taking interest, and continuously going after questions. We live in the age of information. Any question that you're curious about, that you're driven to learn, is valuable, my child, right? And so coming and saying, you know what, I'm going to make sure that my child learns how adults live meaningful lives. And that I have to do by living that myself, even in this crazy situation. And I'm not holding you to some kind of bizarre standard. I know you're going to have your own meltdowns. I have my own tantrums. We have those days that just like flop in a pile and don't work. But the overall picture being one that education is something we get to do, not we have to do. And that education is something that we're always on that path of. Does that make sense, Renee?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And I put myself on mute because I have a tendency to go, I really get into what people are sharing. But yes, this fully makes sense. And I mean, I'm getting a lot of comments in the chat box about this concept of curiosity. And, you know, I firmly believe that we all have an opportunity right now to start living into the new world that we're inevitably starting right now and we're going to be a part of, you know, on the other side of all of this. Yeah. And I'm hoping that in that new world, that curiosity is one of the things that we're bringing forward with us. And I'm getting some comments here about some parents noticing that now that they're spending those learning hours with their children, exactly how much in some cases that their curiosity has been a little bit stripped from, you know, their learning curriculum, if you will, at school. And by the way, this is not we're not sharing this episode to break down any sectors, you know, of education. This is all about empowering you and your family and noticing what is working, you know, for you and your family, and trying to give you tools and ways that you can better set up yourself in your life to have a working system for your family. So Avital, with now the so many hundreds and hundreds of parents that are on the call that find their everyday schedule, now their children's learning is a part of it, whether they are doing the distance learning or if it's the homeschooling. How the heck are we scheduling this every day?
Yeah. So, okay. So I see a lot of questions about how do you do this while you're working, et cetera, et cetera. I know it's extremely challenging. And I just want to say, not everybody's going to be able to do all the things. It depends on how old and how independent and what kind of work you do. Do you have flexible hours? Can you work at different times of day? But let's get into the flow, and then I'll explain exactly how we work. So I would love for people to write this down if possible, but I'll also link to my guide that lists all of these. I want to say, I think that in this time, especially, in order to get through a day at home, quarantined with kids, there are 7 elements that we want to have present as much of the day, as much of the time as possible. Not every day, you won't hit on all of them, but just to be aware of them, right? And they go as follows, right? So one is play time. And I put this at the top of the list because a lot of parents tell me, my kid won't play independently, my kid can't play independently. And I arrogantly answer, yes, they will. Kids can play. This is a skill that we teach, like riding a bike, swimming, reading. It's something you have to set them up for success for. It's something that is very not highly prioritized in our culture, but now it should be, because independent play is incredibly healthy for children and so liberating for us parents. Can I get an amen? So independent play.
Seriously, get an amen if any of you have been playing with your children more. How many parents out there can say a yes, that the play has been liberating for them? Before this call, I was just so delighted that my son is down there making Easter eggs with the natural color dye so we can still eat them afterwards. But like, it was just bringing so much lightness. He's wearing little bunny ears, and it's like it's fun. That was my mom interjection. Carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. So creating the environment for independent play. And I want to say, playing with your kids is beautiful and wonderful, but I'm going to bet that you don't have the resources to be playing with them all day, and you don't want them to be dependent on you. Not for them, not for you. So let's talk about independent playtime. Let's talk about focus time. So all of us want us to have certain times in the day where we get to focus on our work. If you're recording a podcast or in a meeting or writing a book, whatever it is that you do for work, being with your boss, you need focus time. So does your child. Small increments, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Focus time is the name of my approach to homeschooling, and I'll talk about that next. But for now, let's talk about crafting a little bit of time in the day where your child can focus, and the times of day when you can focus. For you to be able to work from home, I want to kind of give a little bit of tough love here and say, when we work in an office and we're there for 8-9 hours, how much of that time is truly focused, productive work that yields a result? And how much of it is we're talking to coworkers, we're having meetings, we're checking emails, we're checking in, et cetera, right? There's a lot of kind of half in, half out, pick it up, put it down work that is distracted, that we frankly can do while our kids are playing. And I want you to differentiate right now for yourself in your mind. There is work where I cannot be disturbed. I'm in a meeting, I'm recording something, I have to have focus, I cannot be disturbed. And if you're home with your kids without any other help, you're not going to get that for more than 3 or 4 hours a day. But that should be enough. So 3 or 4 hours a day while they're watching a movie, while they're asleep, while they're playing independently, maybe while they're with another adult if you have that. That is your focus time work. The rest of the work that you're doing, listening to things, checking in with emails, sharing things with coworkers, whatever it is that you have to do, that is stuff that you can do while your kids are playing, while your kids are doing these following things that I'm about to say. So we said playtime, we said focus time. Let's talk about movement time. all children need to exhaust their bodies every day in order to be healthy and in order to sleep sufficiently. Good for you, good for them. So what we've done is elaborated our movement zone we've transformed our living room, which is not a big space. We hang up a Ninja Warrior run. We bring in all the pillows and the cushions, and our kids can sweat in there. We're also very lucky to have a yard. So, okay, they can go outside, but on the rainy days or whatever, they are still moving their bodies. So what are we going to do to make sure our kids are moving every single day? Play Go Noodle, go on Cosmic Kids Yoga on YouTube, dance around with them, play Twister, play Simon Says. That is something that has to happen every day if we want good behavior and healthy, happy kids. And for us too, of course, we all know that. The next one is messy time. I know a lot of people are super scared of mess. We have extra household chores as it is right now, and I'm adding messy time. But I want to say that sensory play, especially for young children, playing with sand, with beans, with paint, with Easter eggs, with mud, with anything where they can tactilely explore, is going to be not only great for their development, but great for you. They'll be engaged for a long time. And yes, you'll have to sweep up afterwards. Yes, you'll have to plonk them in the bathtub, but it's so worth it. On the days when you can handle it, okay? On the days when you're emotionally can handle it. But I want to say you can use a tray. You can put out a plastic sheet. You can put your kid in the tub with shaving cream, so it all just washes away. There are many ways of doing this. I put my toddlers in the tub and sit on the toilet with my computer. I get an hour and a half of work done just like that. So we've got to be creative. We've got to start being agents, right? CEOs of our family, and start getting our creative solutions hat on to say, well, this space, I don't need pictures hanging here because my kid keeps smashing into these pictures when they're jumping on the couch. Guess what? My couch is now a trampoline. I've taken the pictures off the wall. We've taken the coffee table out of the room so that the kid can run. We've got to adjust and use design skills, practical skills to create the spaces that can actually answer our children's needs and therefore make everything better. Okay, so we said playtime, focus time, movement time, messy time, quiet time. All of us need a break. Maybe you have an extroverted, talkative kid who's very, very social and you're their only company right now. Maybe you just need a break. We all do. We're not designed to parent 24/7 without other help. And so I would highly recommend instilling a quiet time, whether your child naps or not, a time when you can put on noise canceling headphones or listen to music or whatever. You're going to hold a boundary and hold high expectations of your child that for this time you're not available. Maybe it's half an hour. Maybe it's an hour and a half. You set them up with a snack. You set them up with going to the bathroom first. You explain to them, and then you hold the boundary consistently over a few days. Eventually, they will get it, just like they get everything else. And it's very good for our children to have high expectations of them, and that we really show them what needs to happen in order for us not to burn out. Our kids don't know the price that they are going to pay for nagging us all day. They don't know, but we know. And it's our responsibility as the CEOs to set those limits so that we can stay sane. Your sanity and your functioning at this time is of highest priority. It is paramount. And that is our responsibility as adults, is to do what we can to stay the course, not to break down, not to sink into depression, and not to melt down. And if that means 45 minutes a day where you're in the tub and your kid's watching a movie, or your kid's just told not to disturb you, so be it. Make it happen.
Yeah, Avital, can I say something really quick? There's a lot of people who are asking for your guide. Do you have a direct link to that or some place where they can get it? Because I really want everyone to have all these different steps. And I already know that a lot of parents are thinking this, because I'm thinking this right now. So I'll just kind of share on behalf of the group collective, if it's relevant for anyone other than me. You know, I think that a lot of these things we're not going to know offhand. You know, you're just saying specifically about getting the quiet time. I can kind of feel people on the call of like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand my child. You don't understand my life. You're living in a utopia. You just are different than me. There's no way I can make quiet time happen. What if I don't want my kid on screens? And the only way that they will let me have quiet time is if they're in front of the TV. You know, I think this goes back to the curiosity that we were talking about earlier, which is it might take some groundwork to actually find out what it is that will have your child be able to give you that quiet time, even if it's 15 minutes a day. But it's worth doing this investigative work so that you can have your quiet time for at least that 15 minutes a day. And that's great that you put the guide in there as well. Okay, so we'll finish up, Avital, we'll finish up with the list. And then I'm gonna kind of go into a simultaneous Q&A while you also give us, after you share the rest of the list, exactly how you have structured that list for your day that you have found that works out for you.
Okay, so yeah, I know someone will, I know a lot of people are thinking it won't work for my kid, but I just need to answer that point with kind of what I was saying just a moment ago. I see parents as the most profound leaders in our world, right? And we are shaping the next generation. And one of the most important qualities of a good leader is that they hold high expectations of the people that they lead. It does not feel good when someone is leading us and they just don't expect we can handle anything. This is a time to build resilience and grit and an awareness that our children are incredibly capable and resourceful. It is not too much to ask of your spirited, wild, dependent, clingy 2-year-old that you have 15 minutes of not talking. But it does fall on our shoulders as the leader to support those high expectations. So remember that diagram of high expectations and high support. I expect of you, but I will also help you to get there. And I expect appropriately, okay? We're not going to expect a 2-year-old to sit silently for 2 hours, but to give mommy 10 minutes while you're playing with this, while all your needs have been taken care of. I gave you a snack and I gave you this and now I'm asking you to be quiet and I will hold you to that limit. I think that that is a high quality parenting, wise parenting. So I just have to put that there.
That is absolute gold. I mean, what you just shared, especially with the premise of leadership, that is absolutely true. You know, I tell this to people all the time. You will get back kind of what you expect, you know, from people. And oftentimes we think that people cannot handle conscious conversation or they cannot handle the truth. So we try to dumb things down and then we never get back a great response. If you speak to people as if they have the wisdom and as if they have the intelligence or the resilience, as you're saying, to rise to what it is that you're communicating, then you are being in leadership because it's helping everyone, you know, rise up. And I've never heard this spoken in the context of with children. So thank you so much for sharing that, because as we shared earlier in the call, you guys, there are over 700 people on this call right now. I'm willing to bet that every parent on this call right now wants this more than anything, to be a leader in their life for themselves and for their children, and to also recognize that these kids are leading us too. So, you know, how is it that we can all resiliently work together? So thank you for speaking into and presencing the intelligence of our children, because they in most situations can rise to meet there.
Yeah, we live in a culture that really dumbs children down. And I'm not talking about talking to them as if they're adults. That's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah. But we see them as fragile and we see them as in need of, you know, overprotection and as incapable. And I think that people fall to your lowest expectations of them. So, you know, hold high ones. Yeah. Okay. So
and by the way, also everyone, just so you know, we have someone working on putting the link on the Facebook video as well. So thank you again to everyone who's joining us from Facebook. And just to re-presence, right now we are finishing up with Avital's flow list, the family flow list, and we will be on the call for about 50 more minutes and engaging in live Q&A in a couple minutes.
Yeah, and I have all that flow and also a template for how to work through it and what each one means. I've put a bunch of links of things that can help you with this that we're working on right now. Okay, so I'll just really briefly say we did play, movement, focus, messy, quiet. Then I want to talk about screen time. I know that the screen time is a huge subject of confusion and contention for us parents. I just want to encourage everyone to embrace the magic of technology. If you are a fully screen-free family and that works for you, that's fine. But if not, I just want to say this is a time to come into right relationship with technology, to use it as an amazing tool, right? But not let it overrun us. None of us feel great when our kids have been in front of a screen for 10 hours a day, for days on end. We don't feel good about that, I think. If you do, that's yours. But if you don't, I want to say that this is a tool that you can utilize consciously. And what's worked best for me is having a fixed time, a predictable, consistent fixed time. It's not a punishment or a reward, and it doesn't change. And so there's very little conversation about it. Just like quiet time, it's just something that we are used to. It's predictable, it's reliable, and we do vet what our kids watch, but not, you know, super strictly. And I think that especially if you're working from home, this is a super crucial time for you to be doing your highly focused work. Your highly focused work that can't be interrupted while your kid is watching. That is a digital babysitter. Now is the time to utilize it. The key there is just to understand when that's happening and not use that time for laundry or for scrolling on Facebook or for other things, but really utilize it in a way that actually serves you. Okay.
That is great advice. And I will just raise my hand that I have been guilty of that. We do have the predictable screen time. And quite frankly, it's actually very relaxing for my 28-month-old now. It is one of the ways that he quiets himself. But again, it is predictable. It's for a certain amount of time. But you're right, girl. I'm doing the cooking and the cleaning during that time. And that's when I need to be doing my focused work. Thank you for that.
Yes. So let's talk about cooking and cleaning and laundry and all the household stuff. So first of all, we're going to have to lower our expectations a little bit around that. Simplify our meals, simplify our laundry cycles, not do as deeper and as illustrious cooking and cleaning as we may be used to. Maybe that's one way of helping ourselves, right? And the other way I think of helping ourselves is to realize again that we can hold higher expectations of our children to be part of human life, right? To be part of adult life. Cooking is an amazing thing to do with a 2-year-old. I know they make a mess. I know they don't do anything right. I have had 4 2-year-olds. I know how they behave. And with that said, the time that they're on a screen or asleep is not the time for you to do that stuff because you only have so many hours in the day.
And so would you do that in the messy time? That's what some people are asking.
Yeah, so I think messy time is a fantastic time to do baking with your kids, do laundry with them, and they can jump around in the cushions while you're folding, etc. And you've got to surrender a little bit. It's not going to be, you know, if you're a perfectionist and you run a tight ship and you're used to doing your chores while your kids are at daycare or at school, it's going to look different, and that's okay. You know, it can be a fun, maybe, I don't know, time with your kids. And it's good for kids to see what it takes to run a home. It's good for them to learn the real life skills. You know, channel Maria Montessori and realize that that's where they learn gross and fine motor skills. That's where they learn cause and effect. That's where they learn to take responsibility and that, oh my gosh, mom just spent an hour cooking this meal. Maybe I should appreciate it and not throw it on the floor. There are so many things to understand from that time. It's a great time to learn. So if we just reframe that, I think it might be a better way of us managing our home and setting the expectation. If I don't do this laundry right now, we will not have clean clothes. So I recommend that you find yourself something to do, or you can come and help me. Boom, done, right?
Perfect.
And I'll just very briefly say family time is the last thing on that list. And I know that's laughable because you're with your family 24/7. However, you can be with someone all day and not be with them, right? So can we just each decide about 1 minute a day, 1 minute a day, where we commit to actually being with our kids? Okay, you might be feeling guilty because you're not with them all day. You're distracted, you're working, you're on your to-do list. Don't feel guilty about that. That's you living your life and doing what you need to do to support your family, and that is great. Your kids do not need your attention all day. Kids do not need your attention all day. Please remember that. Please.
Well, I mean, I think that's a big reframe for a lot of people, because even for me hearing that, I'm like, oh, but no, he really does. Like, I want to convince myself, you know, possibly of something else. So I think a lot of this is about giving ourselves permission and being curious about how this can all work for us, especially during these times. Okay, so I want to bring up a couple things for this Q&A and then also weave into the Q&A how you have scheduled and structured this throughout your day. Really importantly, I want to share that we have several questions about older kids, about adolescents and teenagers within this flow. Is this basically the same premise for older children as well? It just, the activities look a little bit different that you would weave into the messy time and that you would weave into the focus time, etc.
Yeah. So I think a lot of older kids have schedules that are dictated to them by school, and you may be just needing to keep up with certain things. So I'll say this, I think everyone needs these times in their day to stay happy and healthy. Even us adults, right? We need to do some kind of handiwork, creative work, be it cooking, right? Or be it whatever it is, doing our nails, right? We also need to move our bodies. We need to focus and do some productive learning and work. We need time connecting with the people that we love. We need time to unwind in front of a screen perhaps, right? And so I think that, yes, this definitely works with a teenager. The difference is that with a teenager, we are much more in partnership in creating this flow. We are much more about asking and figuring out with them, saying, look, we have 12 hours in a day or whatever it is. These are the things we have to do for school. What are the things that light you up? What are the projects you want to take on, right? And how are we going to ensure that you're moving your body? And when are you and I going to connect? And let's fit that into our daily flow, right? And let's commit. So maybe your child can do their work any time of day. And maybe this is an opportunity for them to attune to their bodies and say, you know what, actually, I need to sleep till 11 in order to be productive. But then I commit that from 11:30 till, whatever, 2, I'm doing this block of work, etc. And so I guess my reframe for you around all the kids is, it's a great opportunity to learn that your time is your precious gift, right? It's what the universe has given you. And it's yours to be productive and to be helpful and to learn and to grow and to live a healthy life and take care of your body and of others. Now, how are we going to craft that and mold that into your day in a predictable rhythm? We're not going to stand over you with an alarm clock, but with some kind of flow that really helps us to get to the end of the day where you feel in integrity and like you've been productive, instead of just wasting away in front of a screen or being, so bummed about how much work you have and that you're missing your friends, right? How do we make the most of it? And remember, we are the curriculum. So we have to teach our teenagers that, yes, there is tragedy and loss. Yes, this is a big change. Yes, maybe they miss school, but guess what? Home is also an incredible place to be. We can make it a beautiful, fun place to be for them. I was asked yesterday, what about all the teenagers who are so sad not to be in school? And I said, well, half of that is that they miss school. The other half of that might be that they don't enjoy being home. Because if they enjoyed being home more, the sting of missing school lessens. How can we make this a cozy time for them, a safe time for them, an inspiring time for them? Can we be the curriculum and teach them that we don't have wasted days on earth? We don't just wait for things to be over, right? We make lemonade out of lemons. We make the most out of this situation, and we are the masters of our time. We can't control the pandemic, but we can control the first thing we do in the morning. And they can have a family meeting with us once a week, design a schedule, shift and shape it as we go along, and learn to uphold themselves. I kind of rebel against this idea in general, culture, that teenagers are being controlled until they're 18 and suddenly they're masters of their own time. So this is a time for them to be, right? For them to be.
Right. Yeah. And I love that I'm seeing a lot in the chat box. People are mentioning the word partnership. Invite your older kids, your adolescents, your teenagers into a team with you, into the partnership. Take the time to deeply inquire about what would feel good to them, what would feel nurturing to them, design this together. And I know already that some people are going to say, but I don't have a teen like that, that will talk to me. Now's a great time to even make the deeper inquiries as to why that might be, and how this can be used as a healing time, for everybody in the family. Avital, one question I want to ask, which is a great question, and I apologize because I didn't write down the person's name who asked this in the chat box, but they said, and I think there's probably a different term that we can use for this, but how do we create consequences if the children are not actively participating in these different 7 categories? How do you have some techniques for maybe the hand-in-hand parenting or the simplicity parenting in ways that we can discipline, if you will, but with positivity?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I told you, I really believe in high expectations and high support. And so I think if you think about running a team, and you're a CEO and you run a team, if someone on your team is failing to uphold their requirements and their job description and not doing their work well, what do? Typically, you're going to bring it up with them and ask them what's stopping them from getting this done, right? Why are they not managing to meet this expectation? Now, with very young kids, you can't have that conversation. Please don't try. It's too many words and it's too confusing. But with the older crew, just because we're coming off of talking about teens, with the older crew, we can say, look, we have certain school requirements, or our home needs to be kept to a certain standard of cleanliness, or I need help with whatever it is, making dinner each night. And I'm seeing that even though you've taken this on, it's not happening. Why not? Do you need more information? Do you need more help? Do you need more guidance, right? Etc. And then I think that there's always a logical or natural consequence for most of the things, right? Like, for example, if we don't clean up in our home, we don't move on to our screen time. Our screen time is at 3 o'clock. Now, it's not a punishment that I'm taking away screen time because you didn't clean up. It's saying, I'm not willing to move on to relaxation until this house feels tidy and the toys are put away, because that has to happen first. Otherwise, it's not relaxing for me. Otherwise, it gets left to me for the evening. And I believe that you guys can do this right now. And so I think it's very kind of just to really look at what is the consequence. Look, if you don't get your work done, here's what's going to happen, right? And I see that it's challenging for you. So how can I help you make it? Do you need a cup of hot chocolate? Do you need to do it at a different time of day? Do you need me to sit by your side and do my work? Should we be accountability buddies? Do you need to Zoom with a friend so that you can study together? What is it that helps you learn or do or fulfill your responsibilities? And what am I willing to do? Like, I'm not willing to serve you lunch until you've fulfilled your morning routine of self-hygiene or taking care of your room, right? I'm not willing. We get to decide what we're willing to do for you when you're not doing the things that you need to do, right? Just by way of example, like, I'm not willing to bring out dessert until that's a terrible example, but right, we have control over that. So does that?
Well, I love that you're demonstrating this, Avital, because there are very different ways of saying, I'm not willing. And I'm sure all of us parents on the call here right now can see that the place that she's coming from when she is sharing this is from a place of kindness and openness and accountability and leadership versus I'm taking this away and I'm not doing this. You know, there's nothing threatening about the tone of your voice and about your energy and the place that you're coming from when you share this. So therefore your words are more of an invitation than they are, discounting. So we just have to keep that in mind, because children especially, they are really paying attention to all of those nonverbal cues, like the energy and where our intentions are coming from. So if we're mad and if we are punishing in the way that we're communicating, then, we're going to have a higher likelihood that they're going to shut down. And then, of course, absolutely not want to participate at that stage in the game.
Yeah. And we're all practicing influence and building influence in people's lives. And what makes people be influenced by us is that they respect us. They see us as a source of empathy and authority. And so I think you have to remember that sometimes you're just going to set a consequence. You're just going to set a rule and you're just going to hold it. Like, quiet time is quiet time. I'll try and help you understand. I'll try and get you on board with my agenda. But either way, I am going to set that boundary. But sometimes I need to do a little bit of work to convince you. A child might not understand why the house needs to be messy. They love their Lego everywhere. And then I have to show you, when I step on it, it hurts. And when it's all over the place, you can't see what you have. And I can't vacuum. And all of the problems that arise for me. And I need you as a family member to care about my agenda just as I care about yours. Your agenda is to build with Lego. And that's beautiful. I support it. Let's figure out a space for it, and a way that we can do it, and a cadence of tidying up that works for both of us. And the point here is always looking for the win-win. Just as we would with our partner, just as we would with team members in our office, children are not very different. They are a little bit different, but they're not very different. And you are the authority. I'm not one of those parenting coaches who says they're the authority and it's equal footing and no hierarchy. You are the authority. But think about what effective authority is. Effective authority is not someone who hands out punishments, bribes, and rewards to get what they want, right? It's someone who actually initiates buy-in to their agenda and really helps to influence habits and habit formation with their own consistency. Are you showing up for your consequences? Are you showing up for your boundaries, right?
Yep.
If you're saying your kid has to get your work done, are you there to make sure it's happening in some shape or form, right? So
yeah, absolutely. We do have a question. First of all, I want to address a couple things here. Monica, you asked in the Q&A box about tantrums and kids fighting. And you know what, we'll actually save that because we have a kind of power struggle expert, Debbie Gottfried, who is coming up, I believe, on Monday's call next week. I could be wrong, but it's Monday or Wednesday next week. So we will definitely get to tantrums. How can we combine life skills with big amounts of education curriculums? So I think this is talking about her children have a lot of distance learning and homework that they're accountable for right now. How do we combine some of the different life skills that you're talking about with that agenda?
So I did promise that I'll outline my own homeschooling approach and see if we can get to that. If not, I put the link here. But I also just put a link about tantrums if that's helpful.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to say, you have to always remember the context of your child. If you yourself had a massive amount of work, right? If you have a massive amount of work to get through all day, how much household work do you have capacity to do, right? If you have a high energy job, then chances are you have support on other elements of your life. So if a child is in a high stress environment in school with a lot of homework, we have to lower our expectations of what they have space for in terms of laundry, cleaning, all of that stuff. We can still hold them to certain expectations. And just imagine, like, my partner is a doctor. When he was studying for the boards, it was all bets are off. He is not expected to do anything. But I said, please, could you just make your bed when you get out of the bed? And please, could you bring your dishes back to the kitchen? I'll wash them. I'll do all the laundry. But don't leave me dishes around the house because that's disrespectful. And it's just as easy to walk back with the dish than it is without. So just like you would make concessions for a partner who's studying for the boards, you're going to make concessions for kids who are managing big workloads. But there is still an expectation of just human decency, of just basic things that, you put your laundry in the laundry basket. You don't leave it on the floor. That's just, gross. And we need to teach kids that, right? Because otherwise they go off and they have a girlfriend and they're leaving their gross underwear, everything. And it's our fault because we didn't teach them the life skill. So definitely the basic life skills, but the huge amount of work, what can you do? There are only so many hours in the day.
Mm-hmm. Do you have, this is a question from Sonia, thank you, in the Q&A box here on the Zoom call. She says, how can I make it all as a single parent?
Sonia, I hear you.
I know, I bow to you. I literally wish I could fly to you and help you, because that's a very real question right there.
Yeah, and some people are saying that link doesn't work. I'm sorry, I'll find it in a moment and get it for you. But I want to talk for a moment about single parenting or any other.
And also, thank you for Virginie. She also has a question about single parenting. If you can maybe add this in, single parenting with twins of 6, having rather difficult behavioral issues.
Yeah. So single parenting means less resources with regards to how many hands are there to spread the work, right? It means that there's 1 instead of 2 parents in the home, and therefore just less help. And when our resources are lowered, remember the equation, our expectations have to match our resources every day of the week. And so if you're a single parent, my hope and belief is that when it's not Corona times, you have other sources of help, right? You have other ways. Maybe it's a grandparent, a friend, a co-op, a school that your kids go to, and you have some time during the day, right? Some kind of system. And if you don't, please, I hope that you'll be able to set a little bit more of that up after this passes. But if it's just you in the home with your children right now, you're going to need to get into a survival mode. Now, here's what I call this, okay? You know how on your phone, you see the battery levels, and sometimes it's high and sometimes it's orange, which is kind of whatever, and then it can go into red.
Sometimes it's always low like mine and the damn battery dies in an important call.
Yeah, so we are like batteries, right? We need to recharge in order to keep going. We can't keep going on fumes. We need the gas. However, there is such a thing as low power mode on our phones. And when we go into low power mode, it means that we reduce all non-essential activities. right? We stop uploading things to the net. We stop tracking ourselves on GPS, and we just conserve our energy for the crucial activities of placing an SOS call or whatever. Mm-hmm. As parents, single or not, when we are pushed against the wall, when our resources have been significantly diminished, when our responsibilities have skyrocketed, we have to go into low power mode. And that means we conserve energy. This is true for any crisis. We put all of our energy on just step after step, the next best task, and now the next best task. Sonia, there will be times in your life for the journaling, the meditation, the big vision, all of that stuff. This isn't that time. This is the time of getting through the day with my head not exploding, right? Or repairing after it has exploded. This is the time to fulfill on the adult tasks, right? Just the next thing that we have to do, okay? This is crisis mode. If you don't have another adult, even if you do, but that adult is working or unavailable or for whatever, you know what? I don't even want to make the delineation between single or non, because you might be a couple of parents who are really pushed against the wall for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter. The point is for you to know what your resources are and match your expectations to them. And I need to tell you that things that seemed paramount, like education, things that seemed paramount, like clean house, need to fall by the wayside a little bit. And we need to recalibrate. Remember, in wartime, we don't worry about school. And in some cases and in some homes, this is wartime right now, in some ways. And we have to hold space for that, because it's incredibly important to realize that it is A-okay for you to do the bare minimum to just get through the day, to just do what you need to do. You want to put 2 movies on a day back to back and just manage it, that's okay. And you must let go of the guilt and the fear that this will somehow traumatize your children.
Yes.
Because what will traumatize your children is you falling apart, not the endless hours of screen, not being 3 months without school. That stuff they get back to so easy. They adapt, they're resilient, their brain is fully plastic. Just remember that homeschoolers make up an entire year of school in 2 weeks summer school. You don't need all of that stuff to do right now. You need to minimize it. Give yourself a ton of compassion. Be your own coach. Be your own lighthouse. Be your own doula. And work on that mindset, saying, instead of saying, I can't do this, I am doing this. Right? I am doing this. Like my doula says to me in birth, right? I said, I can't do that. You are. Listen, honey, you have no choice. You're in this situation right now. We can't change it. Let's ignore everything we can't control. Zero in on what we can control. You are doing this by hook or by crook. It's going to happen. The sun is going to rise tomorrow. And baby steps, moment to moment. Ask yourself, what's the most loving thing to do right now? Yeah. What's the next most loving thing? That's it. That's all you've got right now. Just stay there.
That's so beautiful. I know Eric just shared here, giving yourself grace is often the best way. And that's so true. You know, I've been asking myself the question, if life brought this current external situation to all of this right now, and it did, because we're here, we're all in it, why is it really that we're here? What are some of the things that we can be learning and integrating while here? And I fully believe in my worldview and what I've been able to witness, that living our lives now and on the other side of this from a place of deeper grace, of deeper compassion and greater empathy is one of the reasons why we are here. So as always, where does that start? It starts with ourselves. And, you know, that's why I think, Avital, what you shared at the very beginning of this segment around choosing those things that are good enough. You know, I mean, now, and probably quite frankly, never is it really fair to ourselves to expect 100% A+++ in every category of life all of the time. You know, that's the way that we were living life before. And it really, you guys, it really was not working. Like, honestly, that's like not working for us. It's one of the reasons why we're all here, you know, now as a collective. So yes, Sonia, and to, you know, all the other single parents out there and all the co-parents and really all of us, you know, it's just a reminder that we are imperfectly perfect. Choose our battles you know, and especially choose the battles wisely that you want to actually get into with yourself, because we don't have time, you know, for all the chaos and all the drama. So we get to really be our own best friends right now and know that what we're doing is good enough, and the things that we are going to, that we can improve on, we are going to, because every person, the now almost 700 people that have still stayed on this call the whole time, you're here because you're committed. You found time to be on this call. That is beautiful. There are millions and millions of parents on the planet right now who are not here and, you know, doing the same work. And we hope, you know, eventually that everyone wants to prioritize parenting that much. But I just really want to give you a very deep round of applause and acknowledgement if you are on this call right now, because your heart and your soul is wanting to show up in your best way possible. And that's, you know, that's absolutely beautiful. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes, Avital, to wrap up this section. In your guide that you have shared someplace on here, does it have your flow for the day? And is this something that we can cover in the last 5 minutes here?
It has an example flow of my day. We don't,
okay.
Not a religious thing, but it's just helpful. And please don't compare yourself to me. I have resources of, you know, help and that other people don't have, and outdoors and all of that stuff, but just make it work for you. I want to really strengthen and underscore what you've just said, Renee, is that we are our own coach, our own doula, our own lighthouse. And what we need most right now is to strengthen the inner voice of compassion, of empathy, of you can do this, right? I am doing this. It is happening, and discovering our strengths. Yeah. So let's talk about the flow, and I'll talk specifically about focus time, as I promised, just really briefly, is that we homeschool and meet basic Common Core standards in less than an hour a day. And the reason is because in school, teachers have to manage 30 kids, and there's a lot of in-between stuff. And the amount of focus time that your kid actually spends grasping or practicing a new subject is probably about 15 minutes a day. There's a lot of great things that happen apart from that. But if you really think about going at a kid's pace, learning at the time and day and in the way and in the physical position that suits them the most, you can get out so much more focus. And I don't believe that any one of us can really focus for much longer than that. So what we do is we divide our homeschooling into 3 separate parts: adult-led, child-led, and relationship-led. And I cover all of this in my course Focus Time. I've linked it here. But the idea is that adult-led learning is when you say, look, you've got to learn math, you've got to learn reading, right? You need the tools to become a learner. You need to learn how to learn. And this is maybe something that your child would do by themselves, or maybe not, but you're not willing to take the risk. And you're saying, I want to know for my hand or my heart that I've kept you up with certain you know, standards. We can talk about standards another time.
Yeah.
But you want to keep them up with certain standards, that's a-okay. No apology necessary, but don't do that for long. That's going to be power struggles. That's going to be hating learning. That's going to be a bad effect in your relationship. And you don't have the time, frankly. So what I do is I sit down just from the age of 6 and up. My 4-year-old likes doing it, so we do it with her too, but I wouldn't recommend that necessarily. 6 and up, or 7. Finland, they only start school at 7. And we do a little bit of math and a little bit of reading, okay? 15 minutes each. The next segment, so that's adult-led. I've checked my box. I know I've homeschooled for the day, right? Now, the accumulative effect of that, the compound effect over the year, is that they keep up with their grade levels in reading and in math, which is kind of all I care about in terms of my own consciousness, right? But then we have child-led. And this is where we borrow from the world of Maria Montessori, of Reggio, of emergent curriculums, where we say to the kid, hey, I noticed that you're really interested in dinosaurs. Why don't we get a bunch of great books about dinosaurs? Or why don't we research it? Why don't we build a model of dinosaurs? What do you want to do? How do you want to research this? And that's where the child actually embodies the identity of a learner, saying, my interests matter, and I can access any type of learning, science, history, math, literature, anything, through my fascination. You're fascinated with Harry Potter? Let's do Harry Potter science. Let's talk about the history of Hogwarts and why it was built that way, and the architecture and Gothic influences and all that, right? You can access so much information through the child-led portion. And then finally, we have relationship-led learning. And this is those life skills. This is when we read books to our kids. This is when we're doing life together, but it's actually learning so much, right? Like, we maybe get a subscription box and do some cool science experiments, or maybe we When it's not Corona time, we go on cool outings, or we have a Zoom call with a family member who has amazing stories to tell. Look at all the learning that can happen. And that's how we round out our curriculum and make sure that our children are aware of the greatness of the world, right? And I just have to say that the fourth component to that is independent play. And that is what I think children should be doing for hours a day. That is the biggest chunk of this, is a very little bit of adult-led, and then child-led, and then relationship-led, and finally independent play is where children learn almost everything, really. It's also where they actually acclimate and digest what they've learned and make it reasonable, actually accessible to them and relevant to their lives.
Thank you. That was really beneficial. And again, Avital has dropped some links so that you guys can learn more about this. Lastly, Bruno has a question. He wants to know an example of some activities that you suggest for quiet time.
Yeah.
And also, from what age do you feel like it is possible for children to do quiet time? That's from Januja.
So I never like to put ages and measurements to things because it's so individual, but typically children nap when they're babies and toddlers. Yeah. That nap is the quiet time until they graduate from actually sleeping to just having quiet time. And preschools do this, right? The kids who can't sleep sit on a mat quietly. They look at a book, or they play with some simple toys like Lego or blocks, and that can be quiet time. And it can be just half an hour, right? Something like that. But I think that would be the time to maybe bust out the audiobooks for them to listen to. I'm a huge fan. Listen to a podcast like Wow in the World is a great podcast by NPR for kids. So something that they could listen to with headphones. I would set them up with a little snack, not because I think we should always be giving our kids snacks, but just because maybe that's something that will help you actually not be needed during that time. And make it cozy, make it a fun thing that they get to do. You love to look at this special book and I'm gonna get it out during this time. Or maybe put some toys away that are for quiet time. Like you put them on a tray and you give them this tray with their farm animals and with the fences, and here's your quiet time tray. Maybe you set out a few different things like, hey babe, you're gonna have some quiet time while I sleep, so don't wake me up. But while I'm sleeping, here is a bunch of different things for you to choose from. And I wouldn't put too many words to it. Let them discover those things for themselves. So yeah.
Once again, I just want to presence for all the parents, the beauty in Avital's voice and her communication. I just want to be with you one day at your house because I feel so nurtured by you. But, I'm bringing this up because sometimes we think that it is that we need to, learn or know X, Y, and Z. And sometimes it's just these really simple things with the tone of our voice and, the invitation. So thank you. Thank you for being that presence. Also, as far as quiet time, meditation, when the children are, of an age where that's applicable, great quiet time activity. Even our son, who's 2 years old, he loves going in his teepee, closing the little door in his teepee, and that's his quiet time. Towards the end of the free call series, I believe it is week 4, one of our experts, his name is Andrew Newman, who runs the Conscious Book Club. His books are amazing. I'm sure Avital knows him and has seen his books before, but he's going to be talking to us actually about meditation, mindfulness, and energy management for children. So that would be a great episode to tune into for all of that. Okay, Avital, do you have any, obviously we could talk to you all day long. There's so many more juicy things that I wanted to cover, but any last words in this last minute from you?
Yeah, I just had to keep it real, Renee, because it's very easy for me to speak, consciously and calmly when I'm on a call with you and I've got my professional hat on, but it's not easy for me to do that with my kids. It doesn't come naturally. It's a daily practice. I believe we can all get there, but it's a skill that we need to learn just like everything else. And I blow up at my children and I am very well supported. I have household help. I have my husband home. We are all set. And so if you look at my Instagram or you look at me producing all the videos and all the support for other parents right now, I just have to own that and say that it is because I am fully supported that I am able to show up and do the work that I do. And it is because I'm fully supported that I am able to relatively be present and create a conscious experience and a fun experience and do the focus time and do the homeschooling with my kids. And even with that, I still often lose my mind and yell and say all the things wrong and punish and bribe and do all of that stuff. So I just want you to know that if it appears, you know, like someone else has got it all together, either it's because they're really well resourced, or it's because you're just seeing a very small slice of the pie, and probably it's both of those things together. This is very, very extreme circumstances that we found ourselves in. And I just want to say, I know it's like wartime. I know it's very extreme. I know that there is a tremendous wave of tragedy and loss. And with that, we are the lucky ones, the ones who are home with our kids, who have maybe even held on to our jobs. As hard as it is to work from home, it's so much harder to not work from home and not have an income right now. And so holding on to gratitude and realizing that, yes, managing a full day with kids and a job is incredibly challenging. However, we are very blessed to be in that position right now, and the gratitude can help us to get through. And we get to be creative CEOs of this experience. We can, and it's okay to have a pity party or to feel anxious or depressed. It's justified, it's allowed. However, when you have young children, we don't get to simply check out of life and to give up because it's all too hard. We can't escape in that way. And moreover, we didn't sign up for easy when we became parents. We signed up to be leaders, to be CEOs, and that is coming into full test at this time. So I want to encourage us all to feel the empathy, the grace, the self-compassion, and with that, to still call in our higher selves and to show up for this time best we can. I know we're all doing the best we can, but to show up with creativity, with adaptability, with resilience, and with resolve, not to waste days, but to make the most out of this time and to make this time special memories for our children in the future.
I think maybe a great practice would be choose one thing from this call with Avital today that you can implement into your life, or at least give a try. You know, give one thing a try that you're curious about and sounded like it would be doable for you. Try it on and see if you can implement it sometime over the next couple of days. I'll see you on Friday. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Avital. Always such a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.